SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is the fastest growing sports betting and iGaming event in the industry, happening on the 19th to the 21st of September. Experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof, with 15,000 delegates, over 350 exhibitors, and so much more. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
After 5 years of moving full speed ahead, you could argue that the U.S. online gambling industry is idling, or at the very least, on cruise control. Next week at SBC Summit Barcelona, our very own Sue Schneider will lead a panel discussing what to expect from what many are calling Phase 2 of North American online gambling. On today's episode of iGaming Daily, we're going to discuss some of what we hope is covered in this panel and talk and debate a bit about how big a role iGaming is going to play in it over the next 18 months. I'm your host, Jessica Wellman, editor of SBC Americas. And guess what, guys? I'm coming to you from Manchester, England, sitting across from my senior journalist, Charlie Horner.
Oh, yes. Welcome.
Are you thrilled to be in my presence?
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to be in the same room. And welcome to Manchester.
You're going to have to put up with me being a little bit out of it because I am jet lagged and fresh off a plane. But we're going to make this work. And it's something to be excited about. Charlie, unfortunately, does not get to go to Barcelona. So I'll have to watch this and report back, or you can watch the playback, of course. But Charlie, Sue is going to be moderating a panel with Mark Harper of Covers, Jamie Hummingbird, who is the chair of NTGCR in the States, and Seth Shore of Fifth Street Gaming. And the panel title is North America, What Happens When the Bonus Money Runs Dry? And I feel like this might be the perfect time to be talking about this because we just had the North Carolina casino bill kind of run dry. We've just seen Missouri doing a kind of Hail Mary voter referendum on sports betting. It feels like a moment where maybe we're a little bit down about the way things are now, and it's time to get happy about what is coming ahead. Are you feeling positive about this phase 2 of North American gambling?
Well, it feels like, we've had a really exciting period over the last 5 years of just this incredible growth across the industry. And I think you're right. We're reaching this period now where operators are looking to make some money, but on the legislative side and the regulatory side, we're going through a new phase of what happens next, where we'll legalize next. And things are slowing down a little bit on that side, but hopefully, like you say, in the next 18 months or so, we will see some more movement.
Yeah, I think we kind of need to, because what we have been seeing is that some companies have just run out of runway. You know, you've got Fubo, MaximBet, PointsBet, which now is the delightfully named PointsBet, a Fanatics experience. But, now under the Fanatics banner officially, then you've got companies like Rush Street just saying, we're not going into some of these states. Kentucky, we launched retail sports betting last week. When online launches, we've got 8 operators out of 27 licenses. How much longer do you think companies can kind of hold out and hope that iGaming passes? What happens if in 2024 we don't get anything again?
Well, this is the big question, because we've seen a few operators saying now we're not going to touch a state if it doesn't also have iGaming. I know Kindred have come out and said this. They left
they
Iowa
downsized, you're
last
right.
year. A few other operators have said the same thing, like you say, Rush Street. So I think, the big four operators, the big four operators are established now in sports betting and iGaming. It's a bit of a race to see who can challenge those. Obviously, we've got Fanatics, we've got ESPN, but can some of these other smaller guys use that iGaming expansion or potential iGaming expansion to catch up? Because otherwise, it's a struggle to see how they succeed going forward.
Yeah, and what's interesting? Sue was doing some prep for her panel and came to me and was asking, what iGaming states I thought would be most possible to go next year, I said, obviously, Indiana is at the top of my list. Maybe New York, maybe Louisiana. And Sue, who, if you don't know her, is the godmother. She knows everybody. She came back. She's like, my sources say Louisiana is not happening. So, and New York's a tough state to get things done that, if you come out with just Indiana at the end of 2024, I think you really have to question how much you want to be banking on iGaming being your strategy. It makes sense. It's so much higher margins. It's so much more money, but the slowdown has to be worrying people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a real problem, really, because, like you say, so many operators are sinking so many dollars into entering these markets, assuming things that they can't really control. Sure, they can, get paid for lobbying and try and get that political influence, but at the end of the day, they can't make the votes, and it could come to bite them on the backside.
You know what also is interesting? I think the win bet downsizing really tells you kind of the state of things, because this is the first group I've seen say, we have online casino in New Jersey, we have online casino in Michigan, and it's still not worth it. And they have pulled out of those markets. They're going to stay in Vegas. They're going to stay sports betting in New York, sports betting in Michigan for now, and Massachusetts. But I can't think of anybody else that has closed down the online casino and just said, wash my hands of it. So if you have those states that should be layups for you for a brand like Wynn and it's not happening, you have to question how many can really sustainably be in these kinds of markets. So now that we've seen the brand consolidation, we've seen 8 operators come into Kentucky. Is that kind of where you think we land going forward in these states, that it can probably sustain 8 or so?
I think so. I mean, no disrespect to you as a Kentuckian yourself,
no,
but
we're not a big state.
You're not a big state. I would look at, Massachusetts couldn't even fill out its own licenses earlier this year. Yeah, I think they only had, was it 6 in the end? 8, but they had 15 licenses and they didn't even.
Well, and they were like,
get close.
You better turn in those applications. We're going to turn you away. Like we will turn you down. And I mean, the only state I've seen people, 2 states I've seen people try to get in and not, New York, Arizona. Those are the only ones. I will say, though, Arizona, you've got 18 operators. Colorado, we've seen these smaller operators find their footing and enough to stay afloat, but they don't have iGaming aspirations. So I think that, if you go with like a lower cost product, you're not doing the huge marketing acquisitions. As this panel title says, the bonus money is starting to dry up. And I think customer acquisition might be the phrase of 2024 more so than iGaming, right?
I think I agree, especially amongst these smaller operators, like we say. I mean, the FanDuels of the world, the DraftKings, and they've got their markets locked down. They're going to be battling for the tiny margins of market share. But I really think that, in order for these smaller operators to survive, thrive going forward, especially if they are looking towards iGaming in the future, it's about getting those core online sports bettors now, hopefully retaining them for future expansion, touch wood, iGaming does expand in 2024 and 2025.
And I think if you look at the promotional landscape this year, you see that the era of let's just acquire people at any cost is done. Fanatics is doing a jersey promotion that I'm sure doesn't cost them as much as it seems like it does to a customer. You bet $50, you get $150 merchandise credit in the Fanatics store for the team of your choice. That's their company. They're getting it wholesale. They're not taking $150 loss on each one, compared to a $1,500 sign-up bonus like we saw when New York launched. This is a major operator, and I think it's a very smart way to have a compelling offer that is not just a bundle of cash.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this offer earlier, and I think it's, it's Fanatics using that customer database that they talked so much about and using it to an effective advantage. We all know that Fanatics have this incredible market in sports jerseys, sportswear, and to use that to reward bettors rather than entice people into bet, as we saw was it in Massachusetts or Ohio?
It was in Ohio.
Ohio, yeah. I think using it to reward people for betting rather than using it to entice people to bet is a much more effective and regulatory friendly way of using their USP, really.
Yeah, this one, for those who, Charlie mentioned the Ohio deal, where for people who were buying Fanatics merchandise, they were being offered a credit on the sports book equal to the amount that they spent. That was in regulatory violation because it didn't have proper responsible gambling messaging. And there were some questions about taking an activity that wasn't gambling and using it to entice people to gamble. This is the opposite of that. You are taking someone who is gambling and enticing them to gamble with you by offering them this merchandise. Caesars did this promotion a couple of years ago. I think they had some sort of jersey deal with Fanatics, actually. And I think what's great about this, I don't know about soccer kits, but like football jerseys, the new ones are never on sale. They're always like $150. You really have to wait for your player to get traded or retire, and then they kind of get marked down a little bit. But it's really hard to find like the official jersey for less than $150. That it's not, I think that, and the fact that it doesn't cost nearly that much for Fanatics to make them is really smart. Do we think that's enough for them to change up the landscape? And how long do we think it takes? Matt King, I think you wrote about this recently, right? Did an interview recently saying he thinks they're going to be first to profitability, right?
Yeah, well, he said, he was talking to CNBC, and he said that Fanatics will be the quickest operator in the industry to reach profitability. Of course, we're getting operators who are reaching up profitability now, but what he means is from launch to profitability, they will be the quickest. So we're looking at FanDuel and DraftKings. It's taken 5 years. They're saying that they can do that much quicker. It didn't give any specifics on,
his timeline.
Yeah, his timeline, but it's a bold claim. It'll be interesting to see if, how they do perform over the next couple of years. I think, aside from bonuses and promotional offers and things like that, I think it's really going to come down to product and user experience. Do people want to stay on your app? Is it an enjoyable experience? Do they want to bet with you rather than, I'm going to get this NFL jersey if I bet with you once?
Yeah. The last question of this panel description is there a new way to win in the land of opportunity? And I almost think that's, this panel is about phase 2 and Fanatics and ESPN Bet and second movers, but there's a third wave still, which is when Amazon says we want to get into sports betting, when Apple says we want to get into sports betting, and you can bring that level of tech to it and potentially bring like the most intuitive iPhone-like sportsbook experience that, the problem still remains. The product is just tough. It's like a big Excel spreadsheet on your phone. It's not the easiest thing to work with, and nobody's cracked that nut yet. Bettor has tried with something different. I think some of the DFS sites with their very simple, over-under model, picture of the player, more or less, those kinds of features are, to me, what the new land of opportunity might be. It's just, when are they going to potentially pull the trigger on it?
That's a fascinating point. I mean, it feels inevitable with the rise of, sports entertainment and just how ubiquitous sport is as an industry, not just in the US, but globally. I mean, sport is just growing at a rapid rate. So it would be fascinating to see those kinds of big tech players enter the industry. And yeah, I think making those more intuitive pick style UIs would really help get a more recreational type of player in. And I know Entain and some of the bigger operators are talking about focusing on a recreational player. But yeah, have they cracked that yet? Can some of these bigger tech giants really nail that? That would be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this season, PointsBet is doing like a Parlay Central kind of tab on their app so that you don't have to travel from sport to sport to see SGPs and your parlay options, because they have done research that indicates centralizing that makes them easier to find, discovery and betting easier, getting people to bet a parlay instead of a straight bet, more profitable for the sports book. FanDuel also, jet lag. The name of it I am forgetting, but I think it's like FanDuel Discover is a new piece of the app that they're unrolling that has educational components about how to bet, as well as presenting betting options and like yes, no questions and things that are a little more accessible and reachable. My last thought on this Amazon thing, I don't remember, again, it was a year ago and I've been up too many hours and on an airplane. Someone pointed out Amazon does not get into the Thursday night football broadcasting game purely to broadcast one NFL game a week, 16 weeks of the year. You do that because there are larger plays at hand, both on the media side and on the sportsbook side. So I think as much as this panel is going to be great to see what phase 2 has to offer, phase 3 is where I think, it's a ways out. Knock on wood that it happens. If one of those players gets in the game, I think they stand a significantly higher chance of moving the needle more than like a rebranded Canby Sportsbook with an ESPN logo on it.
And we're going to see a hell of a lot more consolidation. I think if one of those players gets in the game, I think we'll end up seeing a lot more movement in the market. And that would be, we've had a topsy-turvy year this year, never mind 2 or 3 years when we do enter this phase 3.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have an interview hopefully later this week with SharpLink CEO Rob Pythian. He was talking about like legacy tech for these sports books. It's really hard to build innovations on because it's just very hard to code. It's very hard to build. It's clunky still. And there's still a lot of room for us to move forward. Be on the lookout for that. Charlie, I know you have been on vacation, so it's your first day back, but anything in the pipeline people should be aware of at SBC America?
We mentioned it earlier. Adam Greenblatt was talking over the weekend saying that he's happy and ready to compete against ESPN Bet and Fanatics and Bet365. Another big story, I'll let you maybe do some of the wider explanation on this, is what's happening in Florida, because that's a big story.
Yeah, it's kind of the next step, right? So the on-bank rehearing was denied. This means that potentially in 7 days, we could see Hard Rock Sportsbook go live. What could happen, though, the most conservative approach would potentially be to stay offline until this gets through to Supreme Court. I think Wes Flagler and Associates, the group challenging Florida sports betting, we all kind of assume they're going to go to the Supreme Court next. Those of you who do not understand or follow the Supreme Court, they don't have to choose to hear the case. But if they did, it would be very interesting. And then even if they don't choose to hear the case, the next step would potentially be for them to go challenge it in a Florida court versus a federal court. We're going to keep track of all of it. So check out SBC Americas for that. Charlie, you're gonna have to hold down the fort next week while I'm in Barcelona listening to Sue and her wonderful panel. So guys, check me out on iGaming Daily next week with the gang in Barcelona, and be sure to keep checking out what Charlie is doing at SBC Americas. We will see you next time on iGaming Daily.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.